Now, and in the meantime, we continue our coverage of APEC here in the host city. It's shaping up to be another busy day packed with high-level meetings and summit diplomacy. We first go live to the International Media Center, where our presidential office correspondent Song Yoo-jin is standing by. Yoo-jin, we just heard President Lee deliver his opening remarks to start session 2. What can we expect from here?
Well, good morning, Dami. So the 21 APEC member economies are expected to really discuss how to better respond together to shared challenges, such as the rapid development of artificial intelligence and also to aging and shrinking populations, which were also highlighted by President Lee during his opening remarks that we just saw. So the theme of today's session, which is the second and last session of this year's APEC Leaders Meeting, is preparing a future-ready Asia-Pacific. So first, take a listen to what National Security Advisor Sung-lac previously said on the significance of today's discussions.
For the first time, this year's APEC Leaders Meeting will discuss how to respond to future-oriented challenges such as AI and demographic change. Our government will encourage member economies to share best practices and to work toward common solutions so that we can plan for the future together.
Now, Dami, as you know, one of the biggest questions going into the APEC leaders meeting was whether a joint declaration could be adopted because it requires a unanimous approval at a time of rising geopolitical tensions. However, this morning we heard from the presidential office that the APEC leaders Gyeongju declaration, along with 2 additional documents on artificial intelligence and demographic change, is expected to be formally endorsed at the end of session 2. Now, afterward, President Lee will hand over the APEC chair to next year's host, Chinese President Xi Jinping. That will be followed by the traditional group photo with participating leaders wearing a modern take on a traditional Korean scarf. And then President Lee will wrap up his APEC duties by holding a press conference right here at the International Media Center this afternoon.
Right, Yoo-jin, that marks the end of APEC 2025 at Korea today on Saturday, but the President's Day isn't over yet, right?
You're definitely right, Dami. That's because President Lee will be holding his very first summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping, who is making a state visit to South Korea for the first time in 11 years. So their meeting this afternoon will begin by Xi signing the guest book, a photo session, then a welcoming ceremony, followed by talks. So yesterday, presidential spokesperson Kang Yoo-jin gave a preview on what the 2 leaders will discuss. Take a listen.
Under the shared principle that people's livelihoods come first, the 2 leaders are expected to take up ways to address livelihood issues in both countries. In that same context, they are also expected to discuss peace and the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula.
So after their talks, there will be a state dinner. Now, attention is on whether the Xi summit could mark a turning point in Seoul-Beijing relations, which have been strained in recent years. Now, with that, President Lee will wrap up his very intensive week of summit diplomacy here in Gyeongju. However, tomorrow he is scheduled to meet with Singapore's Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, who is making an official visit to South Korea in Seoul. So the president will be continuing his series of bilateral talks in the capital. Dami, back to you.
All right, thanks, Yoo-jin, for that report. That was our Song Yoo-jin live from the International Media Center.